Today, we're talking about holy pilgrimages and apparitions. And the reason I'm combining the two is because many holy sites that people do pilgrimages to involve alleged Marian apparitions. And not all of these sites are sanctioned by the church. So that's why we're kind of pulling them all together. We're going to talk about the power of these pilgrimages, the sanctioned ones anyway, and how to be careful not to get tricked by ones that are false. So why maybe you should stick to the approved list and not veer off the path. And that's what we're talking about today at Faith Focus Network. My name is Daniela Bizant, and thank you for joining us today. So pilgrimages are really powerful, and it's usually something people will undergo at a pivotal point in their life, when they're at a big crossroads or they have a really big ask. And the idea of a pilgrimage is you choose a holy site that somehow is related to your thing. So either there's a saint that you're devoted to, or if you are devoted to the Holy Virgin, it would be a Marian site. Or whatever other holy place for whatever reason. Sometimes it involves needing to do something really grueling. So, for example, the Camino de Santiago, you're walking hundreds and hundreds of miles, right, to get to your destination, which is a cathedral in Spain. But then there's one in Quebec where you go up a big staircase on your knees before your big ask. And you always make a promise, too. So you would usually say, if you grant me this wish, I'll make sure to tell everybody that you did this for me. And, I'm going to donate something to this charity or whatever your promise is going to be. And I've seen some pretty remarkable things happen with people that I know that have undergone these things, all positive, although sometimes it might appear to be negative. Sometimes these pilgrimages really shake you. Like, for example, I spoke to someone over the weekend that did Santiago, the Camino, and they went for secular reasons. They had zero religious intentions, and they went there just to take a break off social media and be alone for a while and have a time out. And that's as far as they were thinking religiously. They're not even Christian, they're Jewish, Orthodox Jew. So for them, it was more the physical challenge. And instead, very quickly, they said it became a religious experience, and they even started to gain an appreciation for the rosary. So even though they're still Jewish, very Jewish, they have a love of the rosary now, which I thought was really unique. They loved it so much, they're going back to do the Portuguese version of the Camino. And if you don't know what the Camino is, it's just a quick Google and you'll find a huge rabbit hole. But, it's a walk that you start in France usually, and then you walk all the way to Spain. And it's the specific walk, I believe, of St. James. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But it's the path that he took. And many pilgrimages are the reenactment of a path that another saint or holy person has done. Or, for example, you can go to the Holy Land and walk the steps that Jesus walked to the cross. My grandmother did that, and she said it was the most impactful moment of her life. Another holy site that's very popular is Medjugorje. She went there too, and she said that was really remarkable for her. So these sites, can be life-changing. As a matter of fact, the person I just mentioned earlier that did the Camino, the second day that they were on the Camino, they lost their job, and therefore were completely liberated. So then when they finished the Camino, from, that moment to the time they finished the Camino, they had already decided to start their own business. 2 days after the Camino, they were offered a different job and moved to a completely different country. So it was a complete life revolution that happened as a result. But sometimes you will have these moments of enlightenment that are so big, it'll make you make changes like that incredibly abruptly that are sometimes painful to the people around you. So you want to be mindful of that too. Bishop Barron did a talk once where he was talking about charismatic Catholics that experience the Holy Spirit and will receive apparitions or what some might consider some kind of prophecy, and how he says if you have that experience or a huge conversion, you should almost put yourself in seclusion for 6 months so that you can process what just happened to you. Because otherwise, when you right away start talking about it, you could come off as crazy, right? Because, it's so overwhelming when it happens to you. So you can have these experiences on these pilgrimages. So I knew someone who came back very different, disassociated from everybody that they knew, and without not even like a gentle goodbye, just one day listed their house for sale and ghosted everybody on social media and just went into seclusion and disappeared. So it can have that big an impact on you. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. Like if you were going down a really bad path and you suddenly had this moment of awakening, it's going to appear bad to everybody around you, but is it bad? What you want to make sure of is that you don't end up in a burning bridges pattern, where you realize, you're never quite at home anywhere, and everywhere you go, you burn bridges routinely, and it's always everybody else's fault, and it's never you. So then you go on another pilgrimage, right? That you need to get this big aha moment. The aha moment's always the same. You have to do everything different, cut everybody else, and start over. So in that situation, is it really the Holy Spirit? I might think maybe not. On that note, with these apparitions and these, inspirations, at a time when the church is struggling, when there's been a big contraction in numbers, let's say, and a lot of people have left the church, the Holy Spirit will sometimes come down and touch a lot of people, and then you'll see rapid conversions back, and a lot of people experiencing a calling or apparitions or really, intense things. And this has happened throughout history. And, it's good, right? But like I said, if you're not under a spiritual direction and you just start all of a sudden kind of getting drunk a little bit on the Kool-Aid and it becomes more than healthy, you have to be really careful. And, right now, the church, apparently the Vatican is going to be releasing a document to guide people on what to do if you have an apparition or if you experience, some kind of a psychic phenomena from the Holy Spirit, so that you can learn to discern what it is, because it might appear good to you, but it's not always. And the deceiver he can use your belief against you sometimes. So for example, in the case of that person I know, that every few years bulldozes their entire life and builds, anew, and then will say that it's a religious epiphany that inspires it every time to justify burning their life down and rebuilding it. Right? And God never inspires destruction. Like, he adds to your life, right? He doesn't, usually bulldoze your life, especially not in a pattern, right? So this is where the Vatican, thankfully, is going to be releasing this document so that you can protect yourself and make sure, was this really a religious apparition, or are you being deceived by the deceiver, or are you taking all these synchronicities and your ego is stringing it together so you can justify the thing you want to do that you're not sure you should do? Right? And it's such a fine few degrees of separation that you have to really pray for wisdom and discernment at that time to make sure. So especially with these pilgrimages, your neurons are going crazy. And that's not just a Holy Spirit thing. That's a matter of science. When you pull yourself out of your daily routine and you do something grueling, especially if it's something that your body doesn't want to do, like you're going to have lots of those moments on the Camino, right? Or going up a big staircase on your knees. When you're doing something that requires that level of grit and discipline and physical pain, sometimes neurons are firing in your brain like crazy. So your brain is going on super drive, and that alone can cause major epiphanies, because you're finally waking up. You're not walking through life sleeping. You're acutely aware, and your mind is completely open to receive inspiration. But it's at this time you can be deceived, So, and I'm not saying that don't go on a pilgrimage. I'm saying take the Vatican with you on the pilgrimage. You know what I mean? And make sure that you are really acting in discernment, and that you take time to actually integrate these inspirations and these experiences into your life before you start making major decisions, proclamations, or, preaching of any kind. And if you are starting to have psychic phenomena in the practice of your faith, you should be under the spiritual direction of a priest, not some other person who's another mystic that's not under spiritual direction, because you're open you are open to be deceived at that point. You want to be under the spiritual direction of a priest. Marmora, Ontario is an unsanctioned Marian apparition site. And my grandmother really believed that, this was actual apparitions. And I accompanied her there once to see for myself. And I did witness something in the sky that I can't explain to this day. The sun appeared as though it was moving up and down and falling from the sky and then shooting back up and spinning. And I've never seen that before or since. So I thought that was pretty neat. However, the person that was claiming to have apparitions that day, she fell to her knees in what appeared to be an ecstasy, but for some reason, I didn't believe it. The thing that I can't explain is that the words that she was saying, and I have to say this was many, many, many years ago, before the scandals came out. So this was before, that's how old I am, before the scandals were made public, or at least public knowledge. And this woman was on her knees weeping. And she claimed that the Holy Virgin was saying, "Pray for my priests. The smoke of Satan has entered the church. He has corrupted my priests, and they will bring a great shame to our church." And there was something about victims. She mentioned something about people being hurt or children being led astray or something like that. But it was all centered around the behavior of her priests. And maybe 6 months, a year later, the scandal started to come out. So that was that's always been at the back of my head. But the church, after all these years, has not sanctioned that site. So I won't recommend it. Like I will say, in order to be safe, only attend sites that are sanctioned by the church. And there's so many. It's not that you don't have a ton to choose from all over the world, because you do. And basically any major cathedral that has a first-class relic is going to be a place that, you will be very open to receive something. As a matter of fact, go to any holy place that's sanctioned by the church, even your own church. Try to do an adoration maybe. Or, for example, plan a novena that ends on the day you attend that church and do an adoration, or attend Mass and receive the Eucharist. I mean, you're opening yourself up. Just you being there opens yourself up. I remember before my conversion was really, in its fullness, and I attended a trip with my mom, and we went to Reims. I mean, we had other family there as well, but what's pertinent to this story is that she and I were together there, and we attended the cathedral in Reims where the French kings had their coronation. And they had a little chapel inside that church devoted to Saint Therese of the Flower Jesus, which happens to be my maternal grandmother's patron saint, her favorite saint, very devoted to. So, it was very meaningful to be there with my mom because of my grandmother. And, the French kings was pretty cool. Well, we didn't realize that Saint Louis de Montfort was also had his coronation in that church. And our local Catholic church is Saint Louis de Montfort. And it's the first Catholic church in Canada, performed the first Catholic baptism in Canada. And so it's a pretty amazing place. And we never really made the connection while we were there. However, as soon as we got home, shortly thereafter, that started to blossom. And then we were suddenly brought back to the Catholic Church. And when we found our local church, it happened to be St. Louis. So it's like, oh, wow, how cool, And now all this time later, I'm now the bell ringer. I'm in the CWL. I'm back at St. Paul's receiving formation. So, it really brought me to fullness. So, and I didn't go seeking that. I really didn't go there seeking that, but I received a miracle anyway. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. But I lit candles and I opened myself up to direction and I opened myself up to intercession. I just didn't have an ask at the time. But everything turned out so beautifully. I put myself in God's hands and I'm glad that I did. So these pilgrimages can be fantastic and life altering. You just have to be really careful that you remain, in discernment. You remain almost cloistered under very strict spiritual direction. Go to your priest if you start experiencing stuff. Share those experiences so that they can help you discern what is real or what might be a hallucination, God forbid, or deception, or just, your ego being really, really convincing. And a priest is the best person to help you discern that, and even to help you choose a pilgrimage that might be beneficial for you. So safe travels, and I wish you every blessing.